Howdy folks, Free Desert Boy here. I just thought I would do this unboxing, try to not make it too long. Something I've been waiting for a while. This particular one is a Henry. It's a lever action. A lot of lever actions out there. I do have a few Henrys and I do enjoy them. Hope someday maybe to have some other lever actions, maybe some historical ones, who knows. For this time, I'm going to enjoy these. These are well made. Always had a lot of fun shooting them, and they've been very reliable. So, without spending a whole lot of time on it, this one here is a Henry. In the box, you know, basically you get a box that says Henry on it. But their focus is on providing you a quality firearm, and always wrapped in some nice paper here. And we take that, set that out of the way here for a second. And one of the things you'll find is, especially with the ones that have a brass receiver, but in any event, they'll have this cover over the receiver area to try to protect it. You always have your operator and safety manual. You want to make sure that you read this so that you're familiar with it. There's some really good information in here. Particularly this one happens to be the 38 or the 357 38 special version of the Henry lever action. It's a tube fed lever action, and there's some good information in here, especially about what's going on with the with what ammunition to use, because it specifically talks about a couple things about ammunition size, especially around 38 specials, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. There's some other information in here. This one happened to be a display version. Even has the price tag still on it. Now, generally, you'll find these. Probably, I think if you were to check, Henry's site, you'd probably see that the price is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $945 manufacturer suggested retail, and this one has some nice features to it. But let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and take this protective cloth off, which is, I always think, is a nice thing to have. As you can see, it's a fairly short rifle. It's actually a carbine. This one has chamber 7 rounds. If you have the rifle version of it, it's longer. It will hold 10 rounds. I know 10 rounds is usually what's required for the cowboy action shooting type of matches I've seen, but this one here to me just seemed to be a nice compact version. Might want to take a look at that. It's kind of a nice setup. So it's a little stiff here getting this tube out. If you've never seen a Henry before, basically you take this tube out, you can put the weapon down and see if there's any rounds in here. With most lever actions, you always cycle the action. You see how smooth that is? Very smooth. You can see that the weapon is unloaded. And if we just pull the trigger, just gently pull the trigger, and the trigger releases. So they do have a, what do you call it? It's got a transfer bar safety in this, and think for a minute. And so the transfer bar safety is set up where if the hammer gets released, and you need to read about this in the manual to really fully understand it. Remember, I'm a hobbyist, not an expert. But the way I read the manual, basically what happens is it fires if it's released, if it's fully cocked and released by the trigger. If the trigger releases for any other reason other than being released by the, if the hammer releases for any other reason other than by the trigger, it should have the hammer, the transfer bar in place, or the transfer bar safety should prevent it from firing. So basically there is a transfer bar safety in this weapon. It's set up that way, and once again, as you can see, it cycles very nicely. Just let that down and decock it. As far as, you know, stats on it, it's a pretty substantial weapon. You know, as you can tell, it's not, you've probably seen the old rifleman videos. You see him slinging that. It's probably a Winchester round, you know, like it's, you know, just no big deal, pretty easy to do. This one's a little heavier than that, to me, anyway. I think it's about 7.5. It's 7.76 pounds, I think, officially. It's 35 inches overall, so it's not even 3 feet long. It's a 16.5-inch barrel. It's made out of blued steel. As you can see, this is octagon. It's got a brass barrel man. It's got a brass receiver. It's hardened brass. It's also, if you were to look at the top of it, you would see here that it's drilled and tapped for a scope. There are accessories that are available. I've seen on the Henry website where you can put different type of scope mounts on here. One of them is called the receiver type scope mount, but they also have a Picatinny rail kit that you can fit on here. I imagine so you could fit a red dot or something like that on here if you want to. Some people do that with some of these lever actions. It basically has, as far as the sights go, this is a little heavy to hold this way, but basically has a semi-buckhorn sight with a brass bead post, and it's adjustable. When you adjust these, you want to be real careful and make sure you're using something that's not going to damage the wood. They actually do have, some people sell gun sight kits, including Henry, that use brass, or some people will use plastic or something like that, because when you adjust it from side to side, there's some good videos out there on YouTube about how to adjust these types of sights. Some people will opt to put some sight on here. There's a company called Skinner that makes a lot of sights, which are more of a peep sight, but the basic buckhorn sight that comes with them is pretty good. And once again, it's 7 rounds. It fires 357 Magnum. It fires 38 Special plus P. And this is American Walnut, the stock and the forearm part of it. And just a couple of other things that I can think of. Oh yes, if you didn't see it before, the butt plate is brass, so this doesn't have a recoil pad like maybe a 45-70 or some of the other rifles do. There is a leather butt cuff, they call it, that fits on here that you can buy. Henry has one available from Kirkpatrick on their website, but there's other people that make them as well. And sometimes that might be good for that. So, I know there was one thing I was talking about the manual about 38 specials. There's actually, that's why it's important you read the manual. There's some real specific language in there with the 357-38 model, making sure that the 38 you get are as close to size and kind of, I guess, weight configuration as like a 357. They recommend using really 158 grain 38 special loads, and don't recommend using lighter loads like 110 or 130 grain, but you need to read that for yourself. So once again, just something to enjoy. It was, you know, as I said, it's about 945 bucks on the if you look at it on the website. This here for me came in at around just under, you know, 800 bucks. It kind of depends on where you get things at, and of course that's not without any tax or anything like that. It has this large loop lever, which is kind of nice if you had gloved hands, and of course the 357 is a round that you can hunt with. I know I did a video, which I don't know if I've posted yet by the time you see this, but it talks about that there's even bare load type rounds made. But if when you're shooting heavier rounds, even though this is a rifle and all that, it might still be a good idea to check with Henry, you know, before you put super high powerful loads in here, because there are limitations to what the SAMI, I don't remember exactly what that stands for, but it has to do with organization that sets the standards for what the pressure should be in the chamber for particular rounds. So if you were going to load this, once again, if you go to loosen this too, this one's a little stiff. Usually they're not quite this stiff. One thing you always want to make sure, of course, is that the gun is empty before you go to do it. And then you don't want to leave it in this configuration where it's open. You close this up, make sure the trigger's down after you've checked it unloaded. And if you look at this, with the gun usually at an angle, it's made in the shape of the bullet. There's kind of a shape here for where the base of the cartridge fits in, and you put them in there and then they slide down. Usually you do it at a slight angle. Some people will take the tube out and put them in through the top. Other people will put them in. They'll pull this out just to the point like this, where they can expose this slot, and they'll put the rounds in. I really try to, when I'm around these type of weapons, as you always know, it's always best not to, you want to practice safety all the time. Treating weapons, always as though that they're loaded, so you don't always want to try to avoid getting your hand in front of the muzzle at any time. So anyway, just thought I'd share this with you, talk a little bit about what was in there, and look forward to taking that to the range, do a little range video on it, and hope you like that, and talk to you later on. This is Desert Boy. Give me any comments you think about it. Tell me what you think about it. I personally think a gun this short can also be not just a target hunting and collector thing, but could also be a viable, home defense weapon, because it's pretty short. It's like a carbine. It's shorter like a lot of your self-defense rifles that people talk about, or carbines. I'm not a big, person to go out and talk about ARs and things like that, because this is what I enjoy. But I know for home defense, the shortness of this allows you a little more flexibility if you were moving around inside of a building or your house or something, if you're trying to protect your family and your home. So thank you very much once again. Have a great evening.